We're excited for our next presentation by Angelo Caruso. Communicate as if your career depends on it. Michael is a sought-after national speaker. He's making his second appearance at our conference. His first appearance here was in 2015 when Karen stood up here at the podium. Angelo Caruso teaches people how to be better speakers and presenters so they can help more people and amp up their careers. I know you all wish he had done this presentation before I stood up today. He utilizes his unique background in the technology sector and a separate career in the entertainment business to deliver keynote speeches that feel like a combination of your best teacher and your favorite comedian. Michael is known for getting extremely fast results with his clients. He can make anyone a better communicator and regularly demonstrates his effective communication strategies by helping audience members improve during his presentation. He is a founder and president of Edison House, an international consulting firm. Edison House clients include Hallmark, Bank of America, Verizon Wireless, Rayovac, Citgo, Nissan, United States Navy. Michael has authored Work Hacks and his audio book, Dear Angelo, A Father's Life Letters to His Son. He's also a highly rated online speaker coach, coaching masterclass titled Present Like a Pro. A lifetime Rotarian, Michael loves giving back. He enjoys exercise, movies, nonfiction books, and travel. At this time, please welcome back Angelo Caruso.
Thank you very much. Nice job. Where'd you get that introduction?
Here.
From me. How we doing? Good. It's great to see everybody. I thought we would see more people in costumes last night for the Mardi Gras party. Renee bought some quick masks online before we came, because we didn't want to be the only ones that didn't have costumes on. Turns out we were the only ones that had costumes on. And this was fun because I put the mask on, and then Renee's like, do you have your name badge? And why wear a mask if you're going to wear a badge, a name badge? We worked through it. Everything worked out fine. It was a great party. It's nice to be with everybody again. I have a fantastic program for you today. We're going to help you with all kinds of things related to communication and your speaking and listening skills. You're going to be able to use them in formal presentations. You'll use them informally. And you're going to double dip, because if I teach you how to be a better communicator at work, and these techniques are effective for you, you're going to try these techniques at home with the family, so you're going to get a double dip. All in favor say aye? Aye. Great, let's do it. And if you got something to write with, I'm going to give you a lot of references and things to remember, so I think this is going to be really good for you. I'm especially pleased to do this in an industry, for an industry, that is so honorable. I've done a lot of work in the financial sector, which is interesting since I'm not really a numbers guy, but I know that this is content that you guys need. You work in an industry of rigor in a society that's becoming more casual. And it's interesting to see the two bump up against each other. Could I ask a favor, somebody in the back, to please shut the door so that we can focus? Thank you very much. The very first section I want to start with on is a networking, which is interesting because you're going to be able to leave here and practice these things in the first 2 minutes that you walk out of the room. In fact, you won't be able to help yourself. That's why when Scott was telling you that we help you improve in real time, he's not kidding. And you might ask yourself, you know, I've been communicating my entire life. How much better can I really get at this? Because communication is a lot like driving. Everybody thinks they're a pretty good driver, and there are a lot of dented cars on the freeway. So the truth is that we can all be a lot better at this. Would you please write this down? Communication can solve almost every problem. Communication can solve almost every problem. And when you have a problem related to communication, you're often partly the cause of the problem. If you think about how a simple misunderstanding happens, it takes two parties to have a misunderstanding. It's easy to put the blame completely on the other person, but there's a good chance you said something that was loose, that was too loose to be, and could be interpreted in different ways, and this is how we get ourselves into trouble. I don't think you should become a better communicator just so that you can benefit from it, but the great motivational speaker, Zig Ziglar, who's from Mississippi, wasn't he? Yes. Wazoo, is that right? I hadn't planned on talking about that today, but it just came to me. Wazoo, Mississippi. Where is that? In Jackson. Okay. Very good. So I was a big fan of Zig, and one of my favorite sayings from this master storyteller was, he said, I'll do it in his accent, southern accent. You can get what you want if you just help other people get what they want. I loved it when I heard it the very first time. I believe it. If you help people get what they want, you will get what you want, and we can do this through communication. I want to tell you a quick story about how this works. The heuristic of this story is that you should first be interested and then be interesting. First be interested and then be interesting. That's the shortcut version of the story, but let me run it down for you. I'm seated on an airplane. I'm in the aisle seat. I have 1,000,000 miles on Delta Airlines. Thank you very much. Please sit down, everyone. But I fly a lot, and I have a favorite seat on the airline. This is weird. But I'm a writer, and I write a lot, and sometimes I'm flying at night. And if you're seated in the left side of the plane, let's see if we do it this way. So we're all on the plane. There's the pilot up there. If you're seated on the left side of the plane in the aisle, the light comes down over your left shoulder. If you're right-handed, the light from the shadow from the light is not where you're writing. On the other side of the plane, it's always where you're writing. It's hard to see what you're writing. So I like to sit in a certain seat on the plane. It helps with me get some work done on the plane and that sort of thing. So I'm seated on the plane, and I'm watching a bunch of people get on, and I'm playing the game that you often play on airplanes. I wonder who's sitting next to me today. And a beautiful woman gets on the plane, and I'm wondering if maybe she's my seatmate. And she walks down the aisle, and she walks right past me. It's not her. And then a big guy gets on the plane, supersized. And I'm thinking maybe it's him. He starts to, wander down the aisle, and he walks by me. It's not him either. And then I hear my seatmate before I see him. And the reason I hear him is because he's talking on his cell phone, communication, right? And I don't know why we do this, but we talk louder on cell phones than we do in real life. Now, I used to be super annoyed at this until I realized you can learn a lot of personal information about people just by listening to their calls. And they raise their voice so you can hear everything, right? So he gets to my aisle, and because he's talking to somebody on the phone, he doesn't actually greet me properly, which is the thing to do if you're going to sit next to somebody for 3 hours, right? How are you? Excuse me. Would you mind standing? I'm sitting next to you. He doesn't say any of those things. Instead, he says, he kind of grunts at me, And what's weird is I understand immediately what he wants. He wants me to stand up. So I stand up, and while I'm standing up, he's saying goodbye to a child that does not want to say goodbye to Daddy. He's got an overhead bag that goes up here. He's got a bag that's going to go under his seat. Both bags have the luggage tag with the name of a Michigan manufacturer. We're flying out of Detroit, and I now think I know where this gentleman works. Okay, good to know. He sits down, he's now saying goodbye to a second child that does not want to say goodbye to Daddy. And by the time the airline personnel are ready to close the doors, he's saying goodbye to a third child who is screaming into the phone so loudly, I can hear the kid from my seat. And then a really interesting, terrible thing happens. The flight attendant comes over to him and says that he must hang up on the child that's crying because the plane's ready to take off. And he says to this kid on the phone, he says, I'm sorry, honey, Daddy's got to go, Daddy's got to go. And the kid's crying and he has to hang up on the kid. It's a terrible situation. And he finally does, and then he sighs as if the weight of the world is leaving his shoulders. And I turned to him and I said, Daddy's leaving home, huh? And he said, oh, you were listening. And I said, how could I not? And I said, how many kids do you have? And he says, I have 3. I said, oh, what are their names? He said, we gave them S names, Sandy, Sally, and Scotty. Scotty's the oldest. He's 9, and he was the one that was crying the loudest. I said, how old are the girls? He said, 5 and 6. I said, oh my, okay. I said, I think you might work at that company that's on the luggage tag. He says, oh, you're observant. I said, I'm just paying attention, yeah. He said, yeah, I work at that company. I said, well, you're flying for work right now? He said, yeah. I said, how often do you fly? He says, 17, 18 days a month. I said, oh my gosh, well, 3 kids. I said, what do you do at work that you have to travel so much? He says, I'm a sales manager. And I said, yeah, but sales managers can work from home, sales managers can work from anywhere, what's the deal? He said, well, I have to get out into the field to make sure my people are working a full day. And then he got a very strange expression on his face, you know, the kind of expression where people suddenly realize what might be happening. He's realized that he's told a total stranger all this very personal information. I mean, think about this. I now know where he works, what he does for a living. I know his biggest problem at work. I even know the names and ages of his kids, and I know how often he travels. This is not the kind of stuff you just give up every day, right? And he looks at me and he goes, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. He's got to make up for some lost ground, right? And I turned to him and I put my hand out first because I know the person who reaches out first has influence in any conversation, any interaction. I hold up my hand and I said, my name's Michael Angelo Caruso. He says, Michael Angelo Caruso. He says, that's quite a name. I said, I know. He said, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I help sales managers get their teams to work a full day. He says, can I have a card? The lady in front of us says, I want one too. Pretty good story? And in that story, we're now going to unfold and unpack all of these techniques that I just used on that gentleman. And that single instance, it's a true story. And how you can use it at your office. You can use it at functions like this. You can use it at Chamber of Commerce meetings back home. And it's a fantastic way to button up relationships and actually speed up relationships. Now, that's certainly important from a social aspect, that you would have more friends sooner. But what does it mean from a rainmaking point of view? What if you could onboard clients that much sooner because your communication skills move from good to elite? This is the space that we're in right now and what I want to talk about with you. So let's, as I promised, let's talk about networking. I gave you a little microcosm of networking on airplanes. Somebody might not think of it that way. I'm networking on the plane with the person I'm sitting next to, but that's exactly what it was. And how we can improve networking for you today, right now. So let's talk about two basic kinds of networking. If you're taking notes, let's do in person and let's do online. They're both very important these days. I think you would agree. So in person, this is called the reach out, and it's aptly named because I mentioned earlier, the first person who reaches out has influence in any interaction. Now think about how this works. Anybody like to dance? It's like dancing, actually. So when I held out my hand first, what's the other guy going to do? Anybody? Hello? He's going to hold out his hand first, right? Then I'm going to say, my name's Michael. What's he probably going to say? My name's such and such. I'm going to say, I'm from Michigan. He's going to say, I'm from whatever. It's a dance, and I'm leading the dance. So if I don't start the dance, there ain't no dance. The person on the plane sits there quietly and pretends you don't exist for 3 hours, which, by the way, can be a very pleasant flight. But you don't make friends that way. So I do this stuff just for practice. And of course I teach people how to do it, and I want you to get better at it. You could do a better job than you did last night at the Mardi Gras party. And we're going to get to that in just a second. So it starts with that reach out and what I call the perfect handshake. Now the perfect handshake involves the web of the hand. It's that distance here between the first finger and the thumb. Because when you have web-to-web contact, make it now with the person next to you. Just turn to sideways and, yeah. Web to web now, press into the web, and what happens is you get that firm connection, not that dead fish finger thing that you get sometimes. Accountants never do the dead fish handshake, but I know some actuaries that do the dead fish handshake. So it's the web to web that gets that firm connection, and now you're off to a good start. It's a handshake with character and substance. We teach in schools and churches not to judge, but can we just be honest and straight up? We judge all the time, man. It is never going away, and people are making real major decisions about you in the very first few seconds. Who am I meeting here? Who am I talking to? And so the handshake gets off to a good start. So that's called the perfect handshake, all right? And we're also establishing eye-to-eye contact. A lot of people can't hang in there on the eye contact, especially guys. Guys do this. We're famous for this. Watch it the next breakfast meeting at the restaurant, wherever you live. The two guys will say hello to each other at breakfast, and one of them does this, the other one does this, and they say this. Listen to what I say and watch my eyes. He says, "It's good to see you." It's good to see you is here, right? And eyeball to eyeball, but instead it's good to see you. And I've seen pictures snapped right at this moment, even with leaders. There's famous photos of American presidents talking to other presidents, and they're shaking hands, but they're looking somewhere else. It's just amazing. And so we can get ahead of this curve by doing that eye-to-eye contact and that firm grip. Excellent. Now, you also want to be able to think on your feet. Almost everybody can get through the first line or two of that greeting, and then things start falling apart. What do I say next? And you'll see it at parties like last night. You know, it's easy to say, hey, nice to meet you, I'm so-and-so. Where are you from? I'm such and such, okay? And then, I got nothing else to say to you, I gotta move on, you know? Or, it's just awkward. And so I keep a few phrases in my back pocket, and I used them last night, I use them everywhere I go. I'm gonna give a couple of them to you right now. And it makes the thing go so much smoother. How many of you speak a foreign language? Nobody. Fantastic. Seriously. First time ever, 2,000 talks I've done, nobody in the room, I can't really see all the hands, but. So the way it works is if you speak a little bit of Spanish, and you might say to somebody, hola, right? It's H-O-L-A, hola. And then the other person, presumably Hispanic or of Spanish origin, says they smile big, or you might speak Spanish, and everybody loves this, right? When you speak their language. And the other person says hola, and you go, ¿Cómo está? Because that's the second phrase, and the only other phrase you know in Spanish. ¿Cómo está? And then the other person goes, you know, and you go, un poquito, right? Because you can't hang. But what if you could hang another phrase or two? And that's what it's like in conversational improv. When, and here are some of the phrases I use. I might say something like, well, you look great tonight. Now, how do I know? I'm just meeting the person for the first time, but my instant impression is, you look great tonight. And guess what? People will sign for that. They love to hear it, so it's a great line. You look great tonight. Another thing I like to say is, where are you from? Particularly good here because everybody's from a different place. I might say, what firm do you work at? And I might say, what is your position at the firm? What do you do there? And then the person talks about being a partner or, whatever else they might do at that particular company. So there's always this little small town thing, small talk thing that can keep the roll going. We talk about the flight. How was your flight? I just saw a gentleman in the bathroom. I said, when are you leaving out? Right? I don't care. And here's my favorite part. He knows I didn't care, but he goes, oh, I'm leaving on Sunday. We got the 2 kids here, and he starts yapping about the family. Where are you, man? I just talked to you. There he is. Yeah. Was that fun? Yeah, it's the best fun, most fun we've had in a men's room in a long time. My point is that it seems like it's going to be awkward, but it's actually quite smooth, and you'll be quite a bit smoother than the average person in the men's room. That's my point. Okay, so you're thinking on your feet. I want to give you another tip, and it's called the Great Escape, because if you get lucky enough to connect with somebody at a party like this, the next instinctive thing that we do is we hunker down with that one person that we seem to have a connection with. Because now if we cut this guy, cut and run, we got to go find another warm body to talk to and do the whole thing all over again. Now, as a professional who teaches this stuff, this is great practice for me. But the average person doesn't want to stay here and hang out. The average person does want to stay here and hang out. So I need to teach you about something called the Great Escape, which is how you get out of the clutches of somebody when you know it's better for you to go talk to somebody else. So I want to give you some lines that you can use to excuse yourself from the other person. So here's a great one. Excuse me, I have to go. And it sounds abrupt. In sales, it's called the right angle close, because you're talking and then all of a sudden you just make a suggestion that didn't seem like it was timely. Excuse me, I have to go. But the other person goes, okay, and then just let me go, it's fine. Another thing, you can use humor. I've done this a lot. I'll have a completely full drink, and I'll say to the person, excuse me, I'm going to go get another drink. And they never say anything. They just go, okay. And sometimes I even ask them, can I bring you something? What's the default answer? No, of course not. They've got a drink too, right? And then my favorite, which is, would you excuse me? I see someone over there who's more interesting than you. So there's lots of ways to get away. My favorite, of course, on a serious note is, would you excuse me? I'm your keynote speaker tomorrow morning, and I want to meet a bunch of people tonight so I can learn a little bit more about you. And they go, oh, wow, I was just talking to the keynote speaker. Oh, of course, yeah, a totally legitimate reason to leave me and go talk to other people, because you got to gather some intel. So it worked out just great. And that's the great escape. Now, one other thing in networking that people are terrible at, and do we have any vendors here from the hallway? Anybody come in? Any? Okay. You know why? Because they're on break right now. But the vendors, and I know this because I worked in the telecommunication industry for a while. We did a lot of trade shows and do booth duty, and we worked really hard to get people into the booth, and we worked really hard to get their contact information, business card back then almost exclusively, and then we were terrible at the FU. Follow-up, what? We were terrible at the follow-up. So we've got this big stack of business cards, and we don't follow up with them. And you got to do that if you want to cultivate a network. If your whole thing is to be at the Chamber of Commerce to prospect future clients, you got to follow up with them, because they're not likely to follow up with you. So you have to have a system for this. And I've developed a real discipline, and I know some of you have this too. It is discipline, where you leave an event like this and you reach out to people. And the first message is never to sell them. It's never to say, we need new clients at our firm. Would you come in? Or, I've got a presentation I want to show you. No. It was wonderful to chat with you at the Chamber of Commerce function. Always nice, no business. And sometimes I'll add, okay if we keep in touch. And what do you think 98% of the people say? Of course. And I do. We find ways to keep in touch. So it's the same, by the way, we're moving now into online connections, social media, email, that sort of thing. More and more of it with people working from home. And it used to be, and I know it's in flux in the accounting world, so you're gonna have to give me some tips on what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. There was a time when you couldn't even text in accounting, and now you can. But with social media posting, for example, are you able to do Facebook accounts in the accounting trade? Yes or no? Yes. But you can't mention anything about being in the accounting trade, am I right? Just general stuff, yeah. And you certainly can't solicit, you certainly can't promote your business in the way that a lot of companies promote their businesses. So I understand this. My point is, if you truly are representing yourself, you can put yourself out there as a human being, a person with integrity and standards and honor and a code. And then they understand eventually, because you're a CPA, you must be that person at work too. But most people do not do this on Facebook. They don't market themselves as a personal entity. And you should. It's your brand, it's reputation management, and it's super important. So it's something that you can get into if you care to. Now there are two pieces on social that you can impact immediately. One is awareness and the other is engagement. Awareness is two pieces, frequency and quality of the post. Frequency and quality for awareness. And engagement are two things, tags and questions. So I know you know what frequency and quality posts are. Let's talk about engagement. Tags are when you would tag other people. Now I've recently been doing this. I would tag satisfied clients that I have in a Facebook post and thank them for being great clients. And I do this for two reasons. One is it's the right thing to do. And by the way, I do this privately with them too, but I also do it publicly. This is that reputation management piece. I thank them publicly for being great clients, and I tag them, which means my post shows up where else? On their feed, that's exactly right. And now, because they've been tagged, they're obligated to say something like, thank you, or if they kick in with the law of reciprocity, they might say something nice about my services. They don't have to, and that's not why I do it, but they often do. And if you're trying to build your practice and build your book of business, this is a fantastic way to do it. So you're using frequency and the quality of the post, tags and questions to increase engagement. The questions is simply you would ask questions, and you're seeing some of the thought leaders in this doing this now. They seem like odd questions. The question would come from some, quasi-famous person like Simon Sinek, for example, and Simon would post on his page. He would say, "Where is your next vacation?" Now, why in the hell is Simon Sinek asking everybody that follows him where they want to go on vacation next? Can anybody guess? Did I hear something? That may be true. He wants to tell you where he's going on vacation, but the immediate answer is a little bit more practical in terms of the algorithm. He wants a bunch of people to answer him so the algorithm kicks on for his feed. He doesn't care who it is or what the answer is. He's never going to answer everybody, but he wants a bunch of people answering him. And so nobody knows the secret to algorithms. That's why they're algorithms, but this is the general thinking on this right now, and you want to get a bunch of people to kick in responses. Okay, while we're doing networking in person, I want to cover something called body language, the body positions they're called, and I need 7 volunteers to help me with this. Would you meet me down here in the middle of the floor? If you come up, I'll promote your business. Come on, 7 people. Thank you, Ed. I talked to Ed I also talked to Ed in the men's room. I must have been in there half the morning. And Ed says he's trying to bust the stereotype of accountants being boring. You said you had a red, what kind of car?
Camaro.
Red Camaro. And so you're doing your good duty. Thank you, sir. So now we've covered what are called verbal signals and nonverbal signals. These are nonverbals, body language, reading people. You can not only project different signals by monitoring your own body language, but you can also pick up on other people in their body language using that same breakdown. Let's talk now about active listening skills. This idea of being psychologically attractive is super important. I think we spend too much time on the physical attractiveness. Even think about beauty secrets and how we do beauty and take care of ourselves. We give more attention to our dead cells than we do our live ones. Things like hair, skin, fingernails, right? And Renee, my fiance, Renee did a program just now for the spouses, and she talked about nutrition, and she's talking about live cells, and how to change your diet so that you can impact the inside of your body on a cellular level and lead a longer, healthier life. And so we give, I think, too much attention to the artificial piece of it, which is beauty. But what if you could become psychologically attractive? It's what you cannot see in the mirror, right? Psychologically attractive. What if your firm, or if you're in private practice, if you're in a company, a public company, what could you do for reputation management that would make your organization more psychologically attractive? Your market share increases, you've got increased traffic flow on your website, all good things happen. So how do we do this? And by the way, Jerry Seinfeld, I'm listening to, I do a lot of reading. I'm listening to Jerry Seinfeld's audiobook on comedy and how he breaks it down and how he becomes funny. And he's got a nice bit about DNA, and he says DNA stands for darn near attractive. So how can we make ourselves more attractive on the inside of our body? And here's how we do it. One is it's like this spiritual, intellectual connection with other people. I'm going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to ask you to parrot it back to me right now. We're learning in real time. So I'm speaking to you right now about any particular topic, and as I'm talking to you, instead of what you're doing now, which may be, if it's statistically accurate, neutral expression or a resting face. There's no reason for you to emote to me because I can't see you, you're too far away, there's 120 of you here, right? Whatever. But what if you did emote to me? What could happen? And let's practice. So the first emotive exercise I'd like you to do is to slightly, almost imperceptibly nod your head right now as I'm speaking with you. Would you do that for me? Now I can barely see the motion up here, but if you believe in vibration and energy, it's happening. While you're nodding just a little bit, I want you to curl up the corners of your mouth in a slight, almost imperceptible smile, like this. Like you're a little buzzed. For some of you, this will be easier than others. So now I get the little nod here, and then a little crinkle in your eye, which probably happened naturally when you turned up the corners of your lips, although not always. So a crinkle in the eye, upturned corners, and the nod. Are you doing it with me? And what if you could adapt this as a resting pose when you're talking to clients or prospective clients? And how would they perceive you? Oh, he's interested in me. He's, compared to the other CPAs you might be talking to, maybe more lifelike. Anything helps, right? And we're doing more business on Zoom than ever, so they're not seeing any other body language. What are they seeing? Just your cabeza, right? What if it was your resting position? You see people on Zoom, they look like a walking or a sitting dead sometimes. There's no expression at all. So try to work that into your routine. It's fantastic. Okay. I want to get now into this idea of punching up your presentations, particularly your formal presentations, but I believe everything is a presentation. I think every email is a presentation, every text, every web page is a presentation. But let's talk about it in the context of you in the front of the room, or in front of a client, or across the desk from a single client. How many of you do these public programs where you host a dinner or something and you have a bunch of people coming off the street and you tell them about something that's happening and then maybe you try to sign them up? Anybody do these types of events? Nobody. Perfect. I've gone to 3 of them in the past year up in Michigan. And they're terrible marketing ideas. I'm actually kind of glad you don't do them. The ones we went to, the accountant, the CPA firm, the deal was that they would buy everybody that attended, and they don't know how many are going to attend, they just send out the invitation, a steak dinner. But they have you prisoner for that hour and a half, and then you're going to get a presentation and a pitch. So it's a steak, presentation, and a pitch. And people go to suffer through the pitch so they get the free dinner. This is the kind of people you get at these things. And the problem is, two problems. One is there was no FU. There was no follow-up by him on the event. But a bigger problem than that was the presentation was terrible. I told him afterward, I didn't think you need to buy him a steak dinner to do this. So let's talk about how to make this unflat and lifelike, and something that would be better for everybody. And then if you're interested, we can even talk about how to get you in front of more people. I know you eventually have to close your clients one at a time because of the personal nature of the content. I know you don't onboard people talking about personal things about their money with a bunch of people in the room. It has to be one-on-one. But what if you could fill the pipeline by doing talks in front of 20 people or more and speed up that pipeline, fill it up, so that, because it's a numbers game, and then you'd be onboarding more people. That'd be pretty cool. So let's talk about how to punch this up. So simply put, let's talk about the beginning, the middle, and the end of your presentation. Any presentation. Here we go. In the very first part of the presentation, when you first meet somebody, they come to your office, you're going to meet them at Starbucks, whatever it is, even a public little program like this one, you must build rapport in the first few minutes. That's that awkward, social, find a foothold for some common ground kind of a thing that we all think we do pretty well, but a lot of people bumble. That's the rapport piece. It has to happen. And I gave you some lines that you can use to kind of grease that and get it going a little bit earlier. The second thing I want to tell you about the beginning of the presentation is to do this thing that I've invented. It's called the reverse presentation. Probably the best thing you're going to hear from me today. The reverse presentation. Here's how it works. You think that if you're getting together to present to another person, that after the rapport and the greeting, you've got the green light to do your thing. That's how most people roll. Okay, we're here so that I can show you my presentation. It's now time for me to show you my presentation. Let me press PowerPoint, slide 1. Sound familiar? But now you're giving, the problem is you're giving a 16-slide, predetermined, preordained PowerPoint show. Probably the same one you gave to the last prospective client, and you're guessing at what they really want to know. Oh, sure, it has important background about your firm and the principals and the partners and the 3 things they need to be most concerned about, but it's a stock presentation. You understand this? What happens if you can do a reverse presentation where the first person who speaks in the meeting is the other person? And they do a download to you about their issues, their specific problems and questions. Now they're in the air, on the table, in your head, and as you start to work through your regular presentation, you drop in these bits that they've already shared with you because you made time to give them the microphone at the beginning of the presentation. That's called the reverse presentation. I've sold 1 million keynotes with this formula. Most people call me and they go, how much is your keynote? And I say, what's the date? And they go, well, let's talk about the budget. There's a little bit of haggling back and forth, and I can get the gig. But I don't do nearly as good of a job for them because I don't know anything about their particular problem set. So she says, he says, how much do you charge for speaking? And I say, well, I'm happy to tell you that. Before we do that, can I ask you a few questions? What do you think the answer always is? Sure, yeah. Why would you say no? She said, sure, what do you want to know? I said, well, first tell me a little bit about your event. How many people do you expect? Where are you having the event? Great. Is it 2 days, 3 days, 1 day? Okay. What kind of problems are your people having? What would you like me to talk about? I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm writing. And then in my presentation, I start dropping in all the things that she wants. It's not manipulative. It's good communication. She tells me what she wants, and then I tell her I'm going to give it to her. And you can't do it by guessing. One of the best books I ever read on selling is called Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play by Mahan Khalsa. And in the book, I did the audiobook, he says, no guessing. So it's just like that. And I read this over 20 years ago, and to this day, this is how I roll when I'm getting to know prospective clients. You can do the same. Okay? All right. Let's also, I want to give you some freebies here while we're chatting. So we're talking about, I know Tom had you do some QR codes earlier. This is a QR code for a free Facebook group with presentation tips. Now, some of them are for like formal presentations, but some are just communication tips. And if you like the way I roll and you're liking some of these sound bites that you're getting, this is a great way to get them. You're going to get dripped, you know what that means, right? Little these blips once in a while. And you can quit the group anytime. So there's the first freebie that I want to share with you. While we're processing the QR, and I owed you some techniques for the middle and the end of the presentation. So in the middle of the presentation, write this down. You're doing something called trial closes. You're doing anchors, and you're doing anything you can to make sure that you're still on the trail with the other person. Have you ever booked an hour session with a prospective client, an hour, and then they decide not to do business with you? They don't engage you as a firm. And you think to yourself, well, I can't win them all, and maybe they'll come to me another time, right? And then you feel better when you say those kinds of things. But wouldn't you rather not waste the hour? So what you do with trial closes and these anchors is you make sure you're on the trail for the entire hour, because if you're not on the trail, you can dismiss the person from the meeting. Let's say you find out within 30 minutes you're not a good fit. You put that 30 minutes back into your day and put it to good use. Don't default to that 60-minute segment just because iPhone told you you had to. So you say, well, we booked at the beginning, you say, we booked an hour, but if you don't need the hour, that's fine. Okay, that's called a pre-call. And now they know it could be over in 30 minutes. And if it's not a good fit, man, if you can't serve these people, do them a favor, do yourself a favor, and dismiss them. Maybe even refer them to somebody that can do a good, better job for them. But you do not have to hang out for the whole hour. This is time management 101. And then for the end of the presentation, you must protect the close. Please write that down. The end of the presentation is where you're getting ready to onboard them. They've said yes to almost everything you've suggested. Looks like they're going to be your new client. But you have some things you need to do with them at the end of that presentation. Do not box yourself out of that time. So protect the close. In my particular keynote situation, I want to close by minute 45 in a 60-minute meeting. Because if I don't do it by minute 45, I have to meet longer than an hour. And I don't have permission from them to do that. They may have to leave at the 60 minutes mark. So if I delay it, And then I said, and I get excited now, oh, it looks like they want to hire me, it's time to close. And they go, oh, I gotta go, I got another meeting. And now I have to schedule another meeting. We have to microwave everything we talked about last time to close, you see? So it's called protecting the close, whatever it is that you want them to do. By the way, write this down, every presentation has a CTA, call to action. There's no need to meet with anybody if you're not gonna ask them to do something. Bring you paperwork, talk about signing up to a new service that your firm offers, right? There's always a reason to meet, so protect that reason, that what the French call raison d'etre. But I want to give away a couple of books. The first one I want to give away is the Work Hacks book. We're going to do this in a business card drawing. If you don't have a business card, just give me your email, that would be fine. This is called Work Hacks. And it's what's called a perfect bound book, and I did this on purpose. If you open up to any printer spread, this is called the printer spread, any page here, and I happen to open just now to time hacks. If I open up here, how to spot a liar, right? These are work hacks to save you time and trouble. They're all pre-approved by your boss, and it's a fantastic collection. The second book I want to give away is called Little Ideas with Big Results. Same concept here. On the left side of the page is the aphorism. On the right side is a vignette that explains the aphorism. People don't like to take orders, they like to take part. Isn't that true? Normally $40 online. I'm going to do them today for $26. And if you'd like to be part of it, quietly get out your business card and pass them to the center aisle. We'll have people, do we have people from the conference here that can come pick them up? Can I see a hand? Oh, thank you very much. Here are some pro tips for your practice now, and I'm going to speak directly to you if that's okay. We need to stop being so unhelpful with people. Stop being unhelpful. I met a salesperson not long ago, was at a show like this one. He gave me his business card. And I'm looking at the card, and he says, I give you my work number there, and then my direct line's on the card as well. And then he took the card back from me, and he said, let me give you my cell number. I now have 3 numbers for the guy. I don't even have an idea which one to call. That's unhelpful, do you understand? And so we need to figure out, as Bob Seger said in his song, Against the Wind, he says, you gotta figure out what to leave in and what to leave out. Just give the people one number and save time and trouble for everybody. Do not be unhelpful. I also, as an example of this, I worked for an active money management company. They were active investing, and I was their sales coach for 4 years. And when I hired onto the company, I found out, because I did some ride-alongs with the salespeople, and we would be sitting in meetings, and the salespeople always led with this fact about the company. I'll sit down for this one. They had so proud of the fact the owner had developed 145 strategies that the salespeople led with that when they were talking to the prospects. The prospect's like, well, why should I do business with you? And the guy goes, because we have 145 active strategies. And you can see that prospect's eyes glaze over because now he's thinking, I've got to learn about 145 strategies before I can select the one that's right for me. And I taught them how to just do a little bit of research on the company and instead talk about 4 or 5 that were a good fit for them. Skip the 145, just do 4 or 5. And that was a lot more helpful. Sales skyrocketed, they had their best October ever the first year I worked with them. And that's, I think, why he kept you around the rest of that time. But sometimes it takes somebody from the outside to see this stuff. It's okay. And then finally, something I talked about with the group at the breakout yesterday, the CEU session yesterday, which was front load the touches. In any relationship, when you meet somebody, try to close that gap. It's like golfing, right? The ball's 100 yards away. Try to move that ball as fast as you can. We don't putt at the beginning of the hole, we drive. Get it down the fairway, man. And so when I meet somebody at an event like this, as I'm flying home on Sunday, I've got your business card, somebody I had a particularly valuable conversation with, I might text you if your cell phone number's on it and say, it was so great meeting you at the conference. Let's keep in touch. And so instead of me waiting 2 weeks until I can get, clear the pile on my desk at home, I'm getting you that message right away. I'd be the only person to send you a message on my way home from this event. And it leaves a positive impression with people. They think this guy's on it. It doesn't work with everybody, but a lot of people it does. So the goal here is for you to become role model companies, role model employees at role model companies. And what we want you to do is think about ways that you can do that. I hope I've given you some ways to do that today.